Bob Champion, 4 Chinrella, Peter Scudamore, 5 Darmadage, Bill Smith, 6 Fairview, Ron Barry, 7 Jack of Trumps, Boots Madden, 10 Little Owl, Mr. Jim Wilson, 12 Midnight Court, John Frankham, 13 Night Nurse, Alan Brown, 14 Raffy Nelson, Steve Smith Eccles, 15 Royal Bond, Tommy McGibbon, 16 Royal Judgment, Richard Rowe, 17 Silverbuck, Tommy Carmody, 18 So-and-so, Mr. Dennis Gray, 19 Spartan Missile, Mr. John Thorne, and 20 Tide Cottage, Liam O'Donnell. Those are the runners for the 54th Tote Cheltenham Gold Cup, the runners being surveyed in the paddock by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, with Prince Charles and Princess Anne there too, and the sun shining on them and on this great crowd about to see Steeplechasing's Classic. We join the runners for it now with Richard Midler.
There is one of the heart stories of this race, and I think the prominent feature of this whole race this year is that there are so many reasons for different horses winning from the heart rather than from outstanding galloping ability of the horse. Quite often we get heroes, and Jim Wilson really has captured the Cheltenham crowd. His win yesterday on Willie Wumpkins, he got a reception almost equal to Sea Pigeons. Well, what will happen if Jim can take the Gold Cup? This horse, Little Owl, has never been beaten when he's got round over fences. He fell here on this course, Little Owl 11-2 at the moment, but he fell here, his only defeat over fences, in the Sun Alliance Novice Chase last year. Well, he's come back here and he's won over this course. He's proved that he can handle it, but in fact it was in the fog and he beat Leslie Ann that day. Well, we all thought the form wasn't very good, but in fact as Leslie Ann's come out and won the Sun Alliance yesterday, that gives it a big boost. And his beating, 15 lengths beating of Straight Jocelyn, certainly was very handy form. There is the Cheltenham Gold Cup that they're competing for, and what a handsome cup it is indeed. We'll just see how they bet in the win this cup.
And there's a full show. Silverbuck is the favourite 3-1, Jack of Trumps and Little Owl 11-2, Tide Cottage 7-1, Night Nurse 8-1, Royal Bond 10s, Midnight Court 12-1, Diamond Edge 16-1, and on 33-1 approaching Chinrella, Spartan Missile, on 66-1 Fairview, Raffy Nelson and Royal Judgment, and so is the 100-1 outsider.
There is Silverbuck, the favourite, and to date he's won over £82,000. Well, I wonder, will he be adding this considerable prize to his collection today? He's not very big, as you can see, but he's all there and he's got a good motor, and he doesn't actually do more than he has to. At Wincanton last time out, he won quite handsomely. There's his trainer in the brown overcoat walking behind him. He's going to make sure that nothing comes from the outside and kicks him at this stage of the race. It must be a terrible heartache for trainers to get so close to this race and then anything going wrong. Michael Dickinson in his first season as a trainer, and certainly having a tremendous season with 72 winners. Silverbuck is 3-1 favourite. It's 11-2 bar this horse. But his runs so far this season have been tremendously impressive. He has been beaten. That was on one occasion by Sunset Christo, who runs in the next race, but he was giving Sunset Christo £34. So you can't ask a horse more than that. There is Tide Cottage. Well, what a sprightly horse he is. You wouldn't think that he has attained this age with no blemishes at all. I mean, most horses don't get to go through a career without being off for some considerable time for a leg injury. But this horse, he loves Cheltenham. He's fallen here. He's 7-1 at the moment, but he's fallen at the last fence when disputing it with Alverton. He won it on merit last year and then lost the race afterwards. And before that, 2 years prior to that, he was second to Davy Lad in 77. So what a great Cheltenham horse he is, and doesn't he look right for another tilt at it? His form has been somewhat disappointing, I must say, through the year, but he may just be a spring horse. So let's see if he can win. And this is another one that I say would be a winner from the heart. They're making their way out now, and Approaching is leading them, ridden by Bob Champion. Bob who's riding in great form this season. Then we're followed by Chinrulla, Mick O'Toole's runner. Then Diamond Edge, followed by Fairview. Then we come to Jack of Trumps. I wonder what he's got in store for us today. Then Little Owl, half owned by his rider, Jim. Then Midnight Court, previous winner of this race. Then we come to Night Nurse in the bandages. Night Nurse, who's never won over a distance farther than 2.5 miles yet. Then Raffy Nelson, he broke a blood vessel last time, but he galloped really well recently. Then we have Royal Bond, Royal Judgment, Silver Buck. You can see how small he is because Tommy Carmody isn't a big man. And there's Monica Dickinson again following the horses out, leaving nothing to chance. Then we have the French-trained horse. This is trained by a young French trainer, Jan Pourzier, staying over for the Grand National, ridden by the New Zealand amateur Dennis Gray. Then John Thorne and Spartan Missile. Again, he could raise the roof. Tide Cottage and Liam O'Donnell. He's bringing up the rear, but that's probably not where he'll finish. Michael Wheelahan, who's been with Fort Warwin for a few years now, and just look at the shine on this horse. He's 20-1 from 16s, greatly fancied last year, but ran no sort of a race at all. He's quite an excitable horse, this, owned by Devonshire vet Sam Luffridge, and they've tried all sorts of ways, mechanical and other ways, to find out why this horse has lost form, but so far nothing has come up. So we have it on trust now that he might recapture some of his best form, and that is quite good. So the runners parading here, and the jockeys' hearts must be really ticking now. We have a further show of betting for you. The stands are packed, the boxes are packed, the lawn is packed. You cannot get anyone in here, and this is what good steeplechasers will do. They'll bring people from far and wide, and by golly, this is a good steeplechase. Just walking very quietly, very relaxed, is Night Nurse. He's yet to win the distance over 2.5 miles, but last time out he was second to Tragus. That was at Sandown, over 3 miles. He had 12 stone. He was giving a 1.5 stone to the winner. A good performance, and the ground not as bad as people seem to think, so it could be in his favor today now. Night Nurse is 7-1. He's got so much class, and with a clear round, I think that this one, like John Joe, will take all the beating. Looking in great form, and wouldn't it climax a superb week for Peter Easterby. Now we have the Joker in the pack, but he's got a lot of ability. This fellow won a point-to-point as a 4-year-old and then went on to go over fences as a 5-year-old. He's certainly had a fair old time of it, so we tend to think that he's past his best, but he may only just be coming to it. Jack of Trumps is 6-1 at the moment. Boots Madden in the plate, and you can see having a job to restrain Jack on the way to the post. He is a hard-pulling horse, but he certainly looks in fine fettle. Bandaged behind and not in front, you can see there. He obviously drags his hind legs through the fences when jumping at speed, but he does have this tendency to go left-handed. But then, of course, this is a left-handed racecourse, so that shouldn't worry him unduly. I should think Boots Madden will take him right round the inside rail. Just pulling up now to go and look at the first. All these, of course, handicappers. We do have the novice Royal Bond in the race, but they all know what they're here for. Jack of Trumps with that big white face. Going down there, Tide Cottage, number 20. Liam O'Donnell riding fairly short, as you can see. But I wonder how Tommy Carberry's feeling at this moment as he sees his old pal go down there now. But doesn't he look well? I must say that he looks hard and fit. Tide Cottage is 8-1 at the last show. It was such a tragedy that his owner, Anthony Robinson, died just 3 months after experiencing the great thrill of winning this fantastic race. But at least he did have the thrill of winning it. Now running in the colours of Mrs. Diane Price, actually took over Anthony's colours. There is So-and-So with the cross of Lorraine, the Maltese cross rather, coming towards us. So-and-So, formerly trained in New Zealand, then by Nick Gaisley, and now in training with Jan Pourzier in France. This horse, who's been running very well in France, he did fall last time out, but he's been running well, and he's been staying with David Nicholson since Monday. Dennis Gray, his rider, the New Zealand amateur, who came over here to ride successfully for Stan Mellor for a season or two, but he has to be very busy, so we don't see a lot of him. So-and-so 100 to 1, that may represent his chance, but he's staying over for the Grand National, and he'd have a lot better chance in that. Number 12, that's Midnight Court there, standing still. Previous winner of this race in 1978 when he beat Brown Lad. And as you can see, he's very fit for this. We hope that fall didn't unnerve him. He's 14 to 1 at the last show. I know that the sticky ground was worrying John Frankham and Fred Winter, but this horse surprised us all when coming out after a long layoff to win here at Cheltenham over hurdles when Freight Forwarder was in fact favourite. And for the first time, you can see the crowd, the first time in this three-day meeting, being allowed into the centre of the course, and for subsequent races they will also be. But you can see how popular it is for people to go down where the action is, because of course so many people in the stands can't get the real flavour of the race. But these are the enthusiasts, and we have some betting for you.
Silverbuck 3 to 1. In fact, Silverbuck has just gone to 100 to 30. 100 to 30, Silverbuck. Little Owl 11 to 2. A Jack of Trumps 6 to 1. Night Nurse 7 to 1. Tide Cottage 8 to 1. Royal Bond 9 to 1. Midnight Court 14 to 1. Diamond Edge 20s. Approaching Chinrilla and Spartan Missile are 33 to 1. Fairview 66 to 1. And three of them on 100 to 1. Raffy Nelson, Royal Judgment, and so-and-so.
Number 15, ridden by Tommy McGiven. Well, this horse is just out of the novice stage, but Arthur Moore, his trainer, having won Silverbuck now 100 to 30, favourite, and it's 6 to 1 bar. Royal Bond, having won the Lambert and Butler final, had certainly paid his corn for a long time, and Arthur Moore quite rightly says, well, if he doesn't win, this will be a good introduction to Cheltenham for him. So I'm afraid the form been let down a little bit by the Royal Dipper, and he was beaten some way yesterday. So I think he's got a bit on his plate. And there is John Thorne and Spartan Missile. How proud he must feel riding this horse that he bred. He also owned the Stallion and also the Dam. Night Nurse is 6 to 1 from 7 to 1, and John, now at the age of 54, he has no worries about any of the other jockeys, because he's ridden and is riding over all sorts of obstacles at hunting. He's been round Liverpool. He's 33 to 1 at the last show. I think he'd have probably preferred it even softer to have made it more of a stamina test than it is today. But a very exciting member of this field, and we wish him all the luck. Midnight Court 12s from 14 to 1, a bit of late money for him. There's Approaching, number 2. Good-looking horse and ran so well here last year, really threatened coming down the hill, but faded in the closing stages. Well, the goggles are coming down, the stomachs are turning over. It's time for the Tote Gold Cup. So over to you,
Line up, please.
And they're about to be called in.
Get on top of the gate. You're right up there, John, or what? Keep your horse up off the gate.
Right, he's told not to get on top of the tape. I think the starter wants him to take a turn. Silverbuck, 130 favourite. A few of them turning now. Royal Judgment turning, Midnight Court. Spartan Missile, 4 in the ground, Restless, and they're away. And Tide Cottage, the veteran, is the first to show from Spartan Missile and so-and-so, and then Little Owl and Midnight Court and Raffy Nelson as they come to the first of the 22 fences. Tide Cottage lands in the lead from Spartan Missile, and they're all safely over the first. Jack of Trumps and Royal Bond, the two back markers, and Tide Cottage, the old man, taking him along. At the second, Tide Cottage clear of Spartan Missile, so-and-so and Diamond Edge. Behind them come Raffy Nelson and Little Owl and Royal Judgment. Then comes Night Nurse approaching on the inside of Midnight Court and Chinrilla next, and then Fairview, then Silverbuck, Jack of Trumps and Royal Bond. Quite a long run to the third, another plain fence. And Tide Cottage bidding to become the first 13-year-old ever to win the Gold Cup. Has a 10-length advantage now over Spartan Missile and Diamond Edge and so-and-so and Raffy Nelson and Little Owl as he comes down to the third. Tide Cottage, nice sheepskin noseband, well clear, jumps it beautifully. Spartan Missile next with so-and-so and Diamond Edge, and behind Diamond Edge is Raffy Nelson, and then Little Owl and Night Nurse, and approaching. Coming to the water now, Tide Cottage all on his own. Jumps the water, well clear. Coming to it now, Diamond Edge, Spartan Missile and Raffy Nelson and Little Owl and so-and-so and Night Nurse, and approaching, and behind approaching is Midnight Court, and then Silver Buck, and the leader over the ditch there, Tide Cottage, from Diamond Edge, Spartan Missile, Raffy Nelson and Little Owl, and on the outside Night Nurse, and then approaching, and then so-and-so, and behind them Silver Buck, and over the sixth Tide Cottage has gone! Tide Cottage belted that and he's gone. He unshipped Liam O'Donnell. He's going on, the old man, on his own. He hit the top of that very hard indeed, gave Liam very little chance of recovery, virtually none, rather like the case of Good Prospect and the Prince of Wales on the first day of the meeting. Coming to the open ditch now, the second ditch, and Diamond Edge going to jump it in the lead from Raffy Nelson and Spartan Missile. Just in behind them, Night Nurse and Little Owl, and then approaching and so-and-so and Midnight Court as they race to the fence at the top of the hill. Number 8, Diamond Edge from Night Nurse, who jumps it second. Little Owl is third. Raffy Nelson 4. So-and-so and Spartan Missile next, followed by Midnight Court. Behind Midnight Court is approaching, and then Royal Judgment, and then Silverback and Fairview, and behind them Chinrella, Royal Bond, and finally Jack of Trumps. They race down to number 9, preceded by the riderless Tide Cottage. Diamond Edge jumped it in the lead. From Night Nurse, Raffy Nelson and Little Owl, and then Spartan Missile, and approaching and so-and-so on the outside, and Silverbuck and Midnight Court. And behind them, Fairview, Royal Judgment. Spartan Missile on the inside now, jumps just in the lead from Diamond Edge. The outside of Diamond Edge, Night Nurse, then Raffy Nelson and Little Owl, and approaching, and Silverbuck and so-and-so and Midnight Court and Fairview and Chinrella and Royal Judgment, Royal Bond and Jack of Trumps. They level up to face the 11th. It'll be the second last on the next circuit. Night Nurse and Diamond Edge disputing it behind the riderless Tide Cottage. Just behind them come Little Owl and then Spartan Missile. Then Raffy Nelson and Silverbuck and so-and-so, and approaching, and Royal Judgment and Chinrella and Midnight Court and Royal Bond and Jack of Trumps. Now one more before they go out in the country on the final circuit. Night Nurse and Diamond Edge. Those two from Little Owl. Behind Little Owl is Spartan Missile, Raffy Nelson getting a reminder, then Silverbuck going well, then so-and-so and Royal Judgment, then approaching a Midnight Court, and then Royal Bond, and behind Royal Bond is Chinrella, and then Fairview, and finally Jack of Trumps. Next will be number 13, Diamond Edge on the inside of Night Nurse, Little Owl just behind them, then Raffy Nelson, then Spartan Missile and Silverbuck and Midnight Court and so-and-so and approaching, and Royal Judgment. Behind them Chinrella and Royal Bond and Jack of Trumps, and Fairview is now the back mark. At the 13th, Night Nurse and Diamond Edge from Little Owl and Raffy Nelson. Just in behind Raffy Nelson, Silverbuck, with Spartan Missile still going well on the inside. Approaching is next, and then Midnight Court on the outside, then Royal Bond and Chinrella, and then so-and-so as they come to the water. Night Nurse lands in the lead from Diamond Edge. Just behind Diamond Edge, Little Owl. Behind them, Spartan Missile and Silverbuck, and behind Silverbuck is Raffy Nelson, and approaching over the third ditch. Night Nurse lands in the lead from Diamond Edge. Then behind Diamond Edge is Little Owl, then Spartan Missile. Behind Spartan Missile, Silverbuck, then approaching Raffy Nelson, Royal Bond, and Jack of Trumps getting a little bit nearer as they jump the 16th. And Night Nurse from Diamond Edge and Little Owl. Silverbuck is now 4th. In 5th place is Spartan Missile. 6, 7, and 8 are approaching Midnight Court and Royal Bond. 9 and 10 are Jack of Trumps and Raffy Nelson as they come to the final ditch, and Night Nurse lands in the lead. And Royal Bond to follow there. Royal Bond has gone at the last ditch. He's climbed back into the saddle, but he's virtually out of it. The riders climb back, but you can count him out, and 5 from home. Night Nurse lands in the lead from Little Owl. These are the two Peterese to be trained stable companions. Night Nurse and Little Owl from Silverbuck and approaching. Behind approaching is Midnight Court and John Frankham going well. Then 54-year-old John Thorne on Spartan Missile. Then comes Diamond Edge and Jack of Trumps, improving now significantly as they come to the fourth from home. Night Nurse lands in the lead from Little Owl. Behind them comes Silverbuck. Behind Silverbuck is approaching. Then comes Spartan Missile. Then Jack of Trumps beginning to get into the picture too as they run down towards the third last. It's Night Nurse and Little Owl, the two stable companions from Silverbuck. Spartan Missile approaching and Jack of Trumps. And over that one, Night Nurse landed in the lead from Little Owl and Silverbuck going very well in behind Night Nurse, and it's the old rivals now as they come down towards the second last in the Cheltenham Gold Cup. It's Night Nurse and Silverbuck and Little Owl. Just in behind them comes Spartan Missile and Jack of Trumps as they race towards the second last. Silverbuck has come to divide Little Owl and Night Nurse. It's Little Owl on the near side, Silverbuck on the far side now. Little Owl lands in the lead from Silverbuck. Night Nurse, then comes Spartan Missile and Jack of Trumps racing to the final fence now. And it's Little Owl from Silverbuck and Night Nurse. Little Owl with a 2-length advantage at the last. Little Owl lands in the lead. Silverbuck and Night Nurse next, and racing into the closing stages. It's Little Owl being pressed by Night Nurse. Little Owl and Night Nurse, the two stable companions. Jim Wilson from Alan Brown. Little Owl is holding Night Nurse. Jim Wilson becomes the first amateur to win it since 1947. Little Owl wins the Gold Cup from Night Nurse. Third is Silverbuck, fourth Spartan Missile, 5 and 6 are Diamond Edge and Jack of Trumps, and then came Royal Judgment, and then approaching and pulled up Midnight Court, pulled up Cinderella, pulled up Royal Bond, pulled up Raffy Nelson. Here is the winner and the result of the 1981 Cheltenham Gold Cup. First, number 10, Little Owl, owned by Mr. Robin Wilson and Mr. Jim Wilson, trained by Peter Easterby, ridden by Mr. Jim Wilson. Second is number 13, Night Nurse, owned by Mr. Reg Spencer, trained by Peter Easterby and ridden by Alan Brown. And third is number 17, Silverbuck, owned by Mrs. C. Feather, trained by Michael Dickinson, ridden by Tommy Comedy. And fourth, number 19, Spartan Missile. Well, what a race, and what an outcome. Jim Wilson, the first amateur to win it since Dickie Black won it in 1947 on Fort Trier. Here's how he achieved.
Side is Night Nurse, still in with a chance but weakening slightly. But just look at the stride Jim gets there. Jim Wilson on Little Owl really goes for a long one and stretches to get there and crosses just in front of the other two, but it's of no bother at all. Now just one fence to jump. Little Owl pricking his ears, and again Jim goes for a long one, sits back, and is probably 2.5 lengths clear now. But just watch the fighting properties of Night Nurse as he really puts in a tremendous challenge here. Alan Brown switches him, and from our camera angle it looks as if he's making headway hand over fist, but in fact Little Owl's always going to hold him. This is a very good local success. And there in third place, Silverbuck just tiring.
Yes, what a great moment this for an outstanding amateur rider. Winner of the Gold Cup on his own horse. 6-to-1 chance, Little Owl, who was left to the brothers Wilson, Jim, whom we're seeing now, and Robin, by their aunt in her will. And they kept him with Peter Easterby, since when Jim is unbeaten on him. He's won all his 5 races now this season, and he's the winner of 8 of his last 9 races in 2 seasons. Still only a young horse, a 7-year-old. He's the 1.5 lengths winner, with 10 lengths separating second and third. Their third in line there is Spartan Missile, who ran such a fine race, a wonderful national trial. And fourth is Night Nurse, who was bidding there to become the first in history to win a Gold Cup as well as a champion hurdle. I say, it was back in 1947 that an amateur last returned to receive the acclaim of the Cheltenham crowds after winning Steeplechasing's Classic. It was Dickie Black on Fortina. Only a young horse, as I said, so of course a great future in steeplechasing ahead of him, and already getting a 6-to-1 quote from Corals for the 1982 Cheltenham Gold Cup. Marvellous recovery there by Tommy McGibbon on Royal Prices and the trailer dividend.
First, number 10, Little Owl, 6-to-1. Second, number 13, Night Nurse, also 6-to-1.